Hey kiddos, we're going to go over the Unit 3 Cells Review Multiple Choice. So I'm going to scroll on down. Oh, if you didn't get some of these organelles, just Google them, folks. All right, scrolling on down. What is the total magnification used to view these onion cells through this microscope setup? So if you did the stuff at the beginning, you know that the total magnification equals eyepiece times objective. So 10 times 40, you should have got C, 400. A student wrote this description of a cell after looking at it under a microscope. So the cell has a cell wall. So right away, you should know that it is not an animal cell because we don't have cell walls. It has many organelles. Oh, well, bacteria do not have many organelles, right? No nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. So now you're down to, is it a fungus or a plant cell? Including mitochondria, a nucleus, a vacuole, and several chloroplasts. So hopefully you know chloroplasts are green, which would give you a clue that this should be D, a plant cell. Number 3, which of these is capable of moving quickly? Well, in order to move quickly, you have to have cellular structures that help with moving. So if we look at the Elodea, it's got a chloroplast, which tells you it's a plant. And plants do not move quickly in response to their environment. All right, over here we got a bacteria. I mean, the bacteria, some of them are very quick, but this one has literally nothing surrounding it. So it's probably not that quick. Over here we got mildew, which is a fungi, but look, it's stuck to something, right? It has these little root-like structures called hyphae. And so this one is not going to be moving very far, very quickly. And if we look at D, it's got all these cilia out there, and hopefully you know that cilia are short hair-like projections used for movement. So the answer should be D, which that's a little paramecium. Number 4, which of these statements best summarizes the cell theory? Let's see. A, cells contain a nucleus and other parts. Well, do all cells have a nucleus? Because we learn eukaryotic, no. So this one is false, right? They do not have that. So that's not going to summarize it well. Cells can be seen through a microscope. I mean, that's true, but is that part of the cell theory? I don't know. Cells come in different shapes and sizes. Well, that's also true, but is it part of the cell theory? Cells are the building blocks of living things. Oh, that's also true and part of the cell theory. Because the cell theory says that cells are the basic unit of structure and function, which is very similar to this statement right there. So the answer should be D. Which of these functions is most like the brain of the cell? So the brain controls things, right? So the nucleus holds your DNA and controls the cell. So hopefully you pick nucleus. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Golgi packages proteins. And the smooth ER creates lipids and removes toxins. Number 6, a plant and an animal are both living things. According to the cell theory, what can you conclude about these two very different organisms? Plants have cells, but animals do not. That'd be a problem. B, they are both made of one or more cells. Yeah, that's probably pretty true. C, they both come from the same kind of cell. No, hopefully you know there's plant cells and there's animal cells. D, they both come from non-living organism. Definitely not. So you should have picked 2, they are both made of one or more cells because all living things are made of one or more cells. Number 7, the combined observations of Schleiden and Schwann and Virchow resulted in the formation of the cell theory. Which of the following is not part of the cell theory? Well, one of the questions we previously did should have given you a clue about this one. All cells do not contain a nucleus because no. Prokaryotes do not have a nucleus, but they're still cells. Cells do come from other living cells. All living organisms are made of one or more cells, and cells are the basic unit of structure and function of all living things. 8, there are some similarities between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Which of the following structures is found in both prokaryotes and eukaryotic coats? They not both have lysosomes. As a matter of fact, all eukaryotes don't even have lysosomes, only animal cells. Mitochondria are found in plants and animals. Nuclei are only found in eukaryotic cells because no. So the only option is the ribosome, which is not a membrane-bound organelle. It's made out of rRNA. Number 9, which type of cells have genetic material that is contained in a nucleus? Well, hopefully you know what a prokaryote is, because they do not have it. So bacteria are the only ones that do not have a nucleus. So you should have selected D, both plant and animal cells. There are other cells that have a nucleus too, like fungi and protists. Number 10, which cell structure is correctly paired with its primary function? Well, ribosome ribs. Ribosomes do make proteins, because ribs are protein. The mitochondria are used for making energy, vacuoles hold water, food, and waste, and the nucleus controls the cell. Number 11, the diagram to the right represents a cell of a green plant. Solar energy is used to produce energy-rich compounds in which structure? So first of all, you need to know which organelle uses solar energy. That's from the sun, right? So is that going to be A, which is the nucleus, B, which is the cell membrane, C, which is a vacuole, or D, which has to be a chloroplast, I would assume. So the one that uses solar energy would be D, chloroplast. 12, the diagram to the right represents a cell. Which organelle is the site where amino acids are synthesized into proteins? So in other words, what part could make proteins? Well, if you look at 1, that's your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. 2 is your rough ER. You know it's rough because it has those little dots all over them that are ribosomes, and ribs has to do with proteins. So number 2 should have been the answer, the ribosomes. 3 is the cell membrane, and 4 is the nucleus. 13, Joy took notes shown below while learning about cells. It forms a boundary between a cell and the outside environment, controls the movements of materials in and out of the cell, and consists of a double layer of phospholipids. She forgot what the structure was. What structure is described in her notes? Well, it's made out of phospholipids, and it's a barrier around the cell. You should have selected the cell membrane, because cell walls are rigid and protect. They're not made out of those phospholipids. Lipids kind of move and flow. Which of these best completes the concept map? So we're trying to figure out what this is. So if we look at it, it's surrounded by a rigid coat of cellulose. It has a membrane. It has DNA. It has a nuclear membrane, right? So right away, if it has a nuclear membrane, it has a nucleus. That rules out a prokaryotic cell and a virus, which is not even a cell. So we're between animal and plant cells. And down here it says chloroplast. That must be a plant cell. 15, what is the purpose of a flagellum? Well, that's a long whip-like tail that is helpful for a movement. Which of the cells to the right is the best model of a prokaryotic cell? So these are bacteria. So which of these looks like a bacteria? And more importantly, what do prokaryotic cells not have? They do not have a nucleus. So all these ones with the round balls in them are nuclei. And oh, there we go. We got one that does not have it. So the answer is F. What structure is common to all 5 kingdoms of living organisms? Well, animal cells don't have a cell wall, but do they all have DNA? Sure. They don't all have a nucleus because bacteria don't, we know from the question right before, and they don't all have mitochondria because those are membrane-bound organelles. So the answer should have been B, DNA. Good luck on your quiz. Bye.